Hey, this is Wargamer Shawn. I wanted to do a little intro before our video, or our podcast. I know there's been some feedback already because it's up on the podcast and I haven't gotten it on video yet. I did want to kind of do a preamble to this video. I hope that if you're listening to this and everybody's got their opinions, you listen to the whole video or the podcast before, I guess commenting on the or a feedback on the page. I know that everybody's going to have different opinions on stuff, and myself in particular, I'm not speaking for Kenny. I will speak for this. We both have our beliefs on things, and I in particular probably sound more absolute on the podcast because I'm very passionate about most things that I do if I commit myself to them, and I'm very passionate about the hobby. And so when I, have a belief or thinking of something, I sound very absolute on when I speak, and that doesn't mean that I'm not open for opinion or other views. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion or own view. We just wanted to kind of do this conversation because of something that came up recently at LVO, and I thought it was a good time to talk about it. And Kenny wanted to talk about it as well. And so, the podcast is our discussion about that. And, if it offends anybody, I apologize. I don't wish to offend anybody. I think it's just a good conversation to have to get people to think about things. So hopefully you enjoy the video. If you have comments or questions, feel free to comment below. If you have a different opinion, please comment below. Let me know. I mean, everybody is entitled to their own opinions. That's all I wanted to say. We do talk about the LVO a little bit just to kind of put a reference to or a background to what kind of got us thinking about this, and it's on a lot of people's mind right now. That is no reflection on Frontline Gaming or LVO at all. I've said it before. I am very appreciative of what they've done to the hobby and helped, make the hobby more connected, even worldwide, which is great. That's all I'm going to say about it. Hopefully you enjoy the video, and then afterwards there is an interview with a new Black Library author, and hope you enjoy that. All right, take care. Keep on wargaming, guys. Welcome to Combat Phase.
Episode 232.
This is Wargamer Shawn.
This is Kenny.
Just Kenny.
Just me. Not Wargamer Kenny or roller of unholy bad dice.
Maybe you'll graduate someday and you'll be good enough.
Maybe.
I want to wish you a happy Valentine's Day. It's one of my most hated holidays, but wish you a happy Valentine's Day.
Well, thank you very much. Happy Valentine's Day to you too. Day recording.
Yeah, I gotta do stuff with the wife and family, and got those obligations. You get to, Mr. Playboy, you get to just,
Well, I got to do stuff with your wife too, but
it's okay. It's too soon. Anyway, so yeah, it's episode 232, which is amazing.
It is, yeah. We're going to talk about sportsmanship tonight. So this is something we wanted to talk about last week, but we just ran out of time. So Shawn will lead us off in that when we get to that part. And we're going to discuss, an event that's come up recently, but it spawned a lot of discussion between us, off camera, and then some other things we've been doing, like the AOS packet that came out. Yeah, we might as well do news first, probably. Yeah, well, so we're going to open up.
Oh, we're
news.
Doing that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I wasn't on the program. So news. One thing that I thought was pretty cool is they released a beta set of rules for Custodes for the Forge World rules that they had, like the 30K models, so like the hovercraft and the dreadnoughts and stuff like that, and they're going to be integrated into the 40K universe, which I'm excited about because those dreadnoughts are pretty cool looking, and I'm excited to kind of integrate them into my Custodes army. Now, it's a beta set of rules, so it's not official yet, but it's pretty exciting. You should check that out. If you haven't, if you're a Custodes fan, check that out because it's pretty cool.
I'm pretty certain that we'll play a game and then you'll just annihilate me with all those things. But I'm like, they're so beautiful. I can't be mad.
It's so pretty. It's so pretty.
How can I be upset? Yeah, so we got that this week, and Forge World also gave us the set of the Necromunda hired guns, so the most recent trio that we saw at the Weekender.
Yep.
So those are out, and GW Prime is also doing a made-to-order sort of a last call for the metal models. They're going to reprint 3 of those heroes.
Oh, really?
So that's
Which ones were those?
I think one's Medusa, and there's 2 others, because I don't have the thing.
Oh, Age of Sigmar, is it?
No, for Necromunda.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
It's 3, yeah, I don't have it in front of me, but there's 3 of those, as well as we got a new transfer sheet for the Knights from Forge World.
Yes.
And then for Shadespire, so we have 2 warbands that are coming out. They're on pre-order right now, so this Saturday you'll be able to have them in your hands. There's the Fireslayer warband, which is awesome, and the Skaven warband, which is also awesome, but, Fireslayers are Fireslayers.
No, well, the Skaven are cooler.
I don't know about that.
I mean...
so my plan was to get, at least 3 boxes. Yeah, 3 boxes of the Fireslayers, and because I want to have, one to use in Shadespire, then I want to have another one to convert into their inspired versions, and then I want to have one to use as models on, the tabletop for AOS. And what is cool with these is they provided War Scrolls not only for them as their characters, so them actually playing the same personalities, but you can also just play them, because it's a new sculpt for Runefather and Volkites and everything. So I played that for. I awoke to a lovely surprise last night when I came home and I saw that there was a box of the Fireslayers and the Skaven and the Orlux. Which is also a game I'm going to play Necromunda.
You dirty bastard.
So we get to actually have these in front of us here, and you can actually, you can't see them, but you'll be able to see them when the time this episode goes up. You can see them online, but the quality is fantastic.
Yeah. And the Fireslayers, they do different colors again for Shadespire. The Fireslayers are orange, and the
Skaven
are dark brown.
Yeah, I wouldn't not quite Mordfound brown, maybe kind of like
poop brown.
Dryad bark, sort of.
Or poop brown.
Or poop brown, yeah.
Let's just say it like it is.
Just poop brown.
I mean, I guess it's rats. I guess I figure they're going to be the
poop. So
I'm excited about it, and the Orlocks too. They're coming out, and then there's also dice sleeves, and for each of the Shadespire armies, and then also dice and cards and a book for the Orlocks. It's for mercenaries and Orlocks, but. I think if you're going to play the gangs or the mercenaries, you pretty much have to have it. But it's Gang Warrior 2. It's a gaming supplement. And then, like I said, there's going to be cards specifically for your gangs. And then there's going to be dice specifically for the Orlocks as well. If you're a geeky Necromunda person like me, you'll collect them just like I collected the ones for the Escher and the Goliath.
Yeah, so look at these and see the artwork that's in the book. Because they have the squat guys in here, the Beastman. But I feel like they really kept the theme and the style of the artwork of the previous.
For Necromunda, yeah, I think they did a really good job. It's very dark gray and kind of like, I mean, you're in the Underhive basically. It's not, the world isn't pretty down there.
No, it's not. But it's a 49-page book. Pretty decent. The price is coming down.
I was reading the squat guy. His little history is kind of cute, and he was. Because he was with some lord, but because he was an abhuman, he wasn't allowed to stay in the spire where his lord was, so they put him in the other spire, and it was actually lucky for him because somebody had planted a bomb in there and it went off and killed everybody, so his life was saved, but needless to say, he had to find a new career, and he wasn't going to be able to get off the planet, so he basically went to the Underhive and started hiring himself out. So
nice.
I thought that was really cool how they introduced him into the world of Necromunda, because it is a planet after all, and it's it's a hive world, very disgusting hive world. But
yeah, and I think these prices are still really good value for what you get. Like the Orlok box has the 10 models in there, and is just like the main box set. When you look at the gangs, it'll show you different builds in red and then blue, so you can have the different versions of it.
Those models are really nice too, and I've seen people use them for conversions for Astra Militarum or Trader Guard, or even I've even seen them use some of the bodies at Escher with Eldar and Dark Eldar for witches and stuff. So the models themselves have so much applicability, not just to even Necromunda, which I do want Necromunda to do well, but I think the models are just beautiful. I'm pretty excited about it. Very
good, and one's again for Shadespire again, so $30 price point for 4. So it's 4 Fireslayers, it's 5 Skaven, and I mean. Again, I'll go back to, $30 is the price generally, or maybe even $5 less than a standard hero
right.
for AOS. So I think, it's just a
or
great
40K
value.
too.
Or 40K as well. So in there you get again more universal cards, and then more cards that are for the faction specific one. So like for the Volkites, I was showing this on the Fireslayer page last night. I think you have people that don't like the basic, for the Volkites. There's 5 poses in there, and the problem that we found early on with the Fireslayer is, and when I go on other shows and I tell people like to talk about this, I think that inhibition goes away when you don't paint them as Caucasian flesh tone. Basically, don't paint them as white people. So because there's realms and there's lodges in every realms. It was like 6 or 7 months before, I think, on the Firesale page after it got started, before we saw a repeat paint scheme that wasn't the studio basic one. But sometimes the musculature, the poses, some people didn't like them. But if you paint them like mine, have like the red volcanic from like that iconic image of Grimnir slaying Volcatrix before he gets scattered into many little pieces. I've seen black bodies, like Onyx Black. We've seen bodies. A lot of people have done Frost Slayers, green bodies. So there's different shades. So if you don't like that, then the way around that is to not paint them as Caucasians. The 3 new poses in here are great, and I do see with the Runefather too, I see a nice, he's standing there kind of static, and he's got his rune latch held over his back, like he's holding like a great sword over his shoulder. But I see a lot of potential in that, and so I have 4 models of each because I have 4 different Magmadroth boxes. So the idea is like I want to have one on the table, but I see conversions I can do easily with the guy that's mounted up on there already that has the Runefather has his latch key up. And with the Volkites too, so I think with a couple extra boxes of these, for the price, it's worth it. Just use them on the table as something different. What I've been doing with the Volkites is I tend to have 1 or 2 guys in each of my units that are bald, that don't have a mohawk on there, and so when they fail their hair save, I can take that guy off. But just it really breaks up the unit. You have something like that, so the different little poses I think are going to be very welcome. The Skaven dudes are a little bit spikier, though. So you have the Warlord up there crawling out, and he's got a long glaive back, and then you got cool 4 new sculpts as well. And I feel like the cards, they already started previewing some of this on Warhammer Community, but the cards really match the play style and how you would think they would play. So you get really cool universal cards, too, but the Fireslayers have to... You really have to get inspired. You kind of have to do a little bit of sacrifice. You have to think about your game plan, and do you want to hold one or 2 guys back, and 2 others go forward? If you play against something like Stormcaster, you may have to come to them. You're going to have to try and set it up right, but there are ways to get 4 or 5 damage attacks that can kill a guy in one shot. Stormcaster, pretty tanky. At the same time, if you have Bloodbound running at you or skeletons getting summoned up around you, then they really want you to work with the shades, what they call it, shades shards that come down. And there's cards in there about like moving the ground, and so you have like the hair save represented as well. But you can do a lot of cool terrain manipulation, which I think is pretty neat. There's also a video this week about Shadespire Glass, which I have to watch. It's one of the many videos loaded on my screen. Okay, so that's that. Otherwise, we have Malign Portents is continuing. So I actually saw a few people that brought out their old Skullvein Manse, which is now the War Scryer Citadel, whatever they're calling it now. That piece of terrain. So it was cool to see that back out. It's a great piece of terrain, and it's definitely one I'm going to pick up. We got a nice surprise. So I didn't get my White Dwarf early. The people that did were pointing out that there are 2 new Start Collecting boxes that are coming out this week for AOS. And they put it up on their Sunday, what's coming next week article on Warhammer Community. So one is the Vanguard Raptors, the Stormcaster Eternal, and the other one is a Caradron Overlord. And it's interesting about this one because I was thinking about getting the box, the Battle Force that they had around Christmas, but I'm not entirely sure that I want to put, I want to put that much more. I was kind of collecting some Caradron Overlords, and then I stopped because I thought I might mix them with my regular Dispossessed to give them some personality. Then General Sample 2017 gave the Dispossessed some flavor in options, and I feel like it's more like, oh, it's a good deal, I want to get that. But then I'm actually kind of glad I didn't, because then these are both good deals with Start Collecting boxes. But they both come with an Admiral and 3 Endrin Riggers, which I need. And then you have 5 of the Thunderers, which again I would need. And this one has the smallest of the ships, the Gun Hauler, in the box. So that's out there. So if you're interested in getting one of those or doing allies, then that's going to be a good opportunity, because we've been wanting that army to have its Start Collecting box as cheap option. And they're also going to put out Neve Black Talon, who was from Blight Wars, the other female Stormcast. So the other one is in Shadespire, and this one you can get her by herself. And so the rumor engine we saw was that though. What do you think? Is that 40K thing?
I was joking that it was a broken squat clock, but my guess is that it's probably something Age of Sigmar. Is my guess.
Probably, yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I can see tie-ins with Malign Portents, but I mean, at this point, we don't really know. Today, I mean, even on Valentine's Day, there was an awesome, like, it's almost 3 minutes long, this video. It's like a Happy Valentine's Day from the Daughters of Cain, and it's a fun little fairy tale, and it shows you're walking through the book, and this guy's reading it to you. Probably one of the community member guys, but I don't know. I feel like I've heard his voice on Twitch at some point or another. And of course, it doesn't end well for the fine young prince seeking love. So it's awesome.
Our interview that we had last week, Ian St. Martin, I saw he had a post, and he basically said that Karn walked up to somebody, ripped out their heart, bounced it off his head, and said, "Happy Blood Heart Day." And
yeah,
I'm like, well, that seems like something that Karn would do. You know,
it would. Yeah. Let's see what else. Warhammer Fest tickets are on sale now. So that's in Coventry, and we don't have a games day or anything yet in the U.S. again, but maybe we'll be having something at the cafe in Texas at some point.
Yeah, I'm really hoping for something like that once that gets done. I think other news besides, I was going to talk about the thing leading into it with GW. So
let me just see if we. One more important thing as well. I almost forgot about this. This was thrown around last week, but there is some amazing news we talked about. Gotrek and Felix, right? So we all love Gotrek and Felix from the fantasy era, and we knew based on something that came out at the Black Library Weekender that there is going to be a Gotrek. That there's going to be attention to Gotrek in the AOS universe, and they have. I don't know if they reacted because sometimes Amazon will put that stuff up way far in advance. And just a reminder about Black Library books, if you go and look on a date on Amazon, usually it'll say cover not final, but usually that release date is actually anywhere from a week to 3 weeks after it's actually going to be available through Black Library and GW. So, but they finally put out it's going to be an audio drama box set with Gotrek. It's going to be called Realm Slayer. There's pictures on here from the Fire Slayers as far as like the cover art, which is not final again, but this is that awesome picture that Kevin Chin did where you're walking through the lodge. You know, you have all the ancestor statues on either side of you. It's kind of reminiscent, actually, of like one of the ones from 40K. You know, where they're walking like down that road to the palace, and there's all the statues.
Well, it looks a little bit like the Eldar one when they're going to wake up the Avatar of Cain, and there's all the different different Phoenix Lords standing there, but except it looks, you know.
We have to wait till October for this one, unfortunately, but this is just going to be amazing. So I'm totally stoked about this. And I think that's what I have as far as news. I mean, I'm sure we probably forgot something. There's another Fire Slayer story out that you can buy individually if you don't want to get the Legends of the Fire Slayer book. But I think that this is the third or fourth. There's 4 stories total in that book that they were doing for Age of Sigmar when the new races were coming out to help develop them. So you can check that one out if you want them just individually, if you don't have the book already. So why don't you talk about the Warhammer community article and then...
Hobby,
yeah.
Why don't you start with Hobby first?
So actually, Hobby and Games played. So I've done a little bit more building. So I put together the Shadespire kits because they go together super fast for the Fire Slayers and the Skaven. Started to put together a few more of the actual original Necromunda box. I didn't build any Warlocks yet or anything. I'm pleased with those models and the bases. Hobby wise, I'm still reading Shield of Devastation of Baal. I have to finish that one up. I did read Path to Glory of Evan Dickens. His AOS as his first premiere AOS thing, because he's going to be some of what we actually interview later today, and then I'm not sure if he's going to be on this episode of the next one, but we'll have that for you. So got to read that, and pretty much the bulk of the hobby's been preparing for the event on this Saturday. So I've been working on some scenario information and looking at the rubrics that are already out there for the club that Shawn has, which is a good foundation to build from. And then I finally got some progress with some terrain last night. So watched a bunch of videos on YouTube from Duncan and Peachy about building the Sector Mechanicus and the buildings. Actually, I made some progress. So what I want to do is basically I want to have them, they're not going to be probably fully done, but if I can spread that terrain over 2 or 3 tables for Saturday's narrative event, which will be the Imperium as the Cicatrix Maledictum is birthing into experience, then if I could have them looking even better just for pictures and stuff, because it does really enhance the feel, having a nice battlefield, and like our last event, I mean, you have all these tables already with some great terrain. Then we can throw in a little piece of the buildings or something from Mechanicus in here, and that adds more even too. So it's really nice. I think it's very important to me as a player to have a really good looking battlefield and army. I've been putting off things like buying figure cases and transports like I really need to do in favor of getting some terrain stuff, because I tried to focus on 2018 or really getting a nice battlefield for 40K and 30K, mainly for 40K, but you could use it 30K, and AOS as well. So that's kind of what I've been working on. And then I played 2 games. So Friday night or game night, we had a pretty good turnout. We had 3 different games going on. Played a really fun game against Grey Knights. Played Grey Knights. We did Maelstrom of War. I think we did the first mission. And I hadn't played against Grey Knights, so it was kind of neat to see what they can do. Now, I didn't have a lot of demons. I had a Demon Prince, and the Zangors that are on discs, like the Shaman and the Enlightened, are demons.
Oh, are they classified as demons?
Yeah, when they get on the disc, yeah, because they gain the demon keyword. But it was kind of funny because the regular Zangors don't, and they also don't have Death of the False Emperor. So apparently he had played somebody recently and got owned by Zangors that shouldn't have been owning him quite as much, but they are Zangors, Zanglorious. But we ended up, because of time, I think we got through 3 rounds, but ended up being a tie, a 7-7. So that was a lot of counting the Warlord and everything. So that was a really fun game. I had a really good turn scoring objectives, and after that, he had a really good turn at the end. And I could have won, but I shot off Castellan Crow, and I was thinking that my Dark Matter Crystal, I don't know why, but you need it at the end of the movement phase. And I was going to throw the dude over there on the Sorcerer or the Zangors with him to get the points to be able to claim that objective. And I went into the shooting phase and, like, oh my god, I missed the psychic phase. Because you're like, no, you can't get over there because you can't do, like, warp time or anything because the psychic phase already passed. I'm like, oh my god, I totally thought the crystal would work. That one was a tie. I played a game Saturday also for our 30K campaign. This is the Heresy using the 8th edition rules players packet. And I did lose that game. I mean, it's a narrative, so that one's not so much win or lose. But, it was a little unfortunate. We didn't have a lot of time, and we used Open War. We went through a few different things. I played against the Mechanicum, or it's the Adeptus Mechanicus army, but for this campaign, players such as Shawn are using the 40K rules for the Mechanicus.
They don't have rules for the Mechanicum for 8th edition yet. So
yeah, so we were using this, and the Death Guard. I used the Reaping, and I realized, like, and one of the complaints people have is kind of stripping away some of the identity of some of the legions, and I could really see that because I took the Reaping just thinking, like, oh boy, this fluffy little army, and because nothing could advance or deep strike or anything, and I can only have one vast attack, and it just totally cut the balls off because, like, the battlefield looked great and everything, but he was castled up over there, and he said he was going to come to me, and technically his knight did walk towards me, but I couldn't actually survive to get over there. But we had, like, falling debris coming down as one of the twists. It was a twist. We had stuff coming down, so he was raining that on my artillery because that was the only thing that was really in range and able to do anything. Otherwise, I couldn't touch him. He was too tightly packed over there, and over 3 rounds, without being able to advance, I couldn't get over there. So it wasn't the most exciting game, unfortunately, but the event's almost wrapped up. If they do one big mega battle at the end, then I'll be all for that because that'll fit my narrative of my own betrayal and where I fall in Typhon's plans to bait Mortarion and deliver him on a platter to Nurgle. My story's written in there too, so I hope I get to see it through. If not, that's fine too. I'm cool with that. And all right, how about you?
Well, I did do some hobby. I put together the guys that are on the discs, the Zangors, Enlightened. I put 2 squads of those together.
Did you do one of each, one staff, one bow? Or?
I only did the staves, the staves. I did not do bow. I was thinking about it, but honestly, I was thinking about for my army, I don't know if I really need more shooting. I just need more close combat because I think my rubrics can do a good enough job with shooting, so I didn't build them that way. I kind of wanted to, but I only had 2 sets. I basically kind of took the Ogre Thermitage guy and made him on a disc. I kind of made him a herald for Zinch, kind of like a Zangor.
Oh, I started that last night. I started doing that last night too. I found the disc from the Exalted Flamers, but I haven't found the bottom part of it, so I think I might put like one of those Screamers, the Manta, the Ray light things.
put them under.
Yeah, I think instead of a jet of like warp energy elevating up, it might just be one of those that he's surfing on top, kind of like Hank 10.
Well, the discs are made from screamers. That's what they come from. They're old fluff. I don't know if they changed it, but the old fluff is that the Zinch basically transmorphs one of those screamers into a disc. That's what.
And like stretch it over a manhole cover and be like, here you go.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah. Make an umbrella out of this guy
just
too.
for you. Yeah. But I did paint a test model for my Zangors. Those that follow me on Twitter. Yeah, I'm actually doing more with Twitter every day now. But I put some pictures up of that and a I'm used to calling it Dreadnought, a Hellbrute for my Thousand Suns 2, which I think is turning out.
They look
pretty
good,
well. Yeah. So trying to get stuff ready for the event this weekend because I really want to bring Thousand Suns, and so I did that. As far as games played, I played basically the 30K narrative that we're in. I played my ad mech against Imperial Fists, and it was a pretty bloody game. And with cards.
It looked good though. I mean, looking over at the table, it looked good. It was photogenic. It was really good. I wasn't able to. A lot of the cards I kind of had to keep getting rid of because I just couldn't score them. But we actually ended up being tied. It was 7-7. I did kill his warlord. He didn't kill mine, and he did get Linebreaker. I didn't, and then I had first blood, and then with the cards. But it was a good game. I think it was a tough fight. I mean, he had a lot of close combat stuff, and so they performed better than I thought. And my robots really did a lot. So did my. I think people kind of don't think the Rangers are that good, but with those Arquebus, they really are. And you can use them not only to snipe characters, but I can use them because they're strength 7 to like shoot at like light vehicles and things that are tough. And they do D3, and on a 6 to wound, they do a mortal wound on top of it. So I was actually using him to attack his Contemptor Dreadnoughts that he was running because I didn't really have. I wasn't running a lot of big guns except for the robots, which are only strength 6, and so. I was using that to take out his Contemptors, so it was a good game. But yeah, that's about it, I think. Yeah. Oh, I should mention something also as well. As we're doing every month in 2018, we are giving away some Black Library stuff each month. So the first of our 2 giveaways we're going to have in February, I put something up on the Facebook page last night, but you can go to our Facebook page or you can contact us. If you want to get us on Twitter at Wargamer Shawn or at Kenny Lall, Facebook page is probably the best place to go put your answer. There's a post up, and we want you to tell us what story, bio, battle, whatever from the Age of Sigmar that you would like to see that's addressed in a Black Library book. Like, what story, right? And a lot of people have already entered. They want to know about what happened. Actually, the most common one so far is Tyrion, Teclis, and Slaanesh, and what's been going on with Slaanesh this entire time.
I think we're going to get that answer pretty soon.
Probably will, yeah. So go there and just tell us whatever it is. Tell us something you would love to read about in Age of Sigmar, and then you'll be entered. And then that gift is the, I think we mentioned before, the Black Library 2017-18 anthology. So it's got a bunch of short stories in it. And C.L. Werner he'd autographed his, I think it's called Shiprats, his character and Overlord story. The book as well as too. We haven't done the interview, unfortunately. We're waiting for him to feel better and have the time to do it for Overlords of the Iron Dragon. Yeah, this is attached to that and everything too. So it is a awesome book that is really difficult to get unless you actually manage to go to Warhammer World or go to one of these events, and it's autographed. So all the better. So that's the one of 2 things we're giving away in February. So just go there and enter, and then we'll draw that at the beginning of March and announce our winner on the show.
Yeah, good luck.
All right. So you want to do the GW piece of news and slide us in here?
What I was going to kind of bring up is a couple things. Some of you know at the LVO recently, there was a bit of an incident that brought up sportsmanship, and I guess I'll start with that and just kind of go from there because it kind of leads into, and it made me want to talk about it more. But at the LVO, there was one of the top tables, a couple players that were playing on the live stream, and they basically what happened was one player took a long time, took like an hour of a 2.5 hour game to basically do their first turn, and so the second player was trying to kind of speed things up, and he kind of started at the top of the table and moved his way down, just started moving things. And unfortunately, and he did ask, and the person helped him place it, but he placed an assassin down. Basically, it was kind of deep struck. And after that, the opponent was like, well, you can't move anymore because that's the last, once you bring your reserves in, you can't move the rest of the stuff. And so, rather than argue it, he said, okay, well, I think I'm not going to, because basically he had a lot of stuff to still move. I'm not going to play it because I'm not going to have a chance to win and compete because I'm going to lose. But then because of the live stream, he was like, well, I'll go ahead and play it out. But it's, of course he did end up losing. And one of the people from a different gaming company actually that was in the audience saw that he did this, and he thought he was a really good sports, and he basically donated $5,000 for a sportsman award for this player. And he immediately said that he wasn't going to take it, but he was going to actually give it to a charitable hospital, children's hospital.
And then so LVO, because sometimes when things get, you have scores, you have some events where the scores have to deal with like cash prizes. And so if somebody gets, somebody's off, because we've seen this happen at some other major events, right? So the LVO has like a cash prize, doesn't it? Or it has the equivalent of a lot of product?
Yeah. We're going to get to that, but anyway, so the guy basically donated it to the Children's Hospital, and his work actually matched what this guy did. And recently, GW, if you saw on Warhammer Community, said that they were going to match the $5,000 because they thought he was such a good sport about it, and they were going to try to do like a yearly sportsman award that they're going to announce. Now, there's been a lot of talk, and it kind of leads us into sportsmanship in the competitive field or in any event or tournament that you run. The only thing I would kind of finish with before I kind of leave the LVO thing is I will say that, yes, this person did break the rules, and he didn't argue it, but he was trying to kind of speed it up, and that was people's argument as why he should have been allowed to do it. And even Frontline Gaming did post something about it on their page and kind of painted the guy in a bad light, the guy that didn't let him do it. And if you're following the rules of the game, yes, he technically had the right to do it. Would it be something that everybody would do? I mean, I don't think it's really about the money because it was a $4,000 cash prize, but I think it was more about you want to be the best. I think that's it's kind of more of a bragging rights. Yeah. Right. And I think, unfortunately, they painted him in a bad light, and I would say that I do put a little bit of the blame on Frontline Gaming themselves because, honestly, if you wanted to have sportsmen be more of a part of it, then they should have stepped in and said, okay, we're going to allow him to do this, so just let him do it, or just say, okay, it's done. But instead, they kind of paint him in a bad light, and after the fact, I think probably because they were taking a lot of flack from what happened, but I think some of the blame kind of has to rest on the community and the people that are running the events. And I think the problem is that we've made these events such that all that matters is winning, and that's all. I mean, yes, you have awards for like painting and there's a little bit of like sportsmanship, but really the focus on the tournament scene has become all about winning the game. And I think, honestly, sportsmanship's an important thing or aspect to have included in tournaments, but I think as a whole, the people that run these events and us as a community need to change the way we judge the best players. And some of you are saying, well, that's not possible. But I think that when you think about this, all of us that play this game, we have our reasons for playing. Some people play it because they just want to play the game. Some people play it because they like modeling. Some people play it because they want to paint, or they like all aspects of it, or they like the hobby. They like the fluff. And so I think, honestly, you can't compare this hobby with something like billiards or a basketball tournament, because it's more than that. And I think it's okay if you do emphasize other things. And I think what's one thing that you could do to kind of help with that? Well, I think you could, places like this, because you have $4,000, let's say you're going to give to the top player, maybe instead of doing a big lump sum to this one person, maybe do, okay, here's first, second, and third for the top best players, but then also go, okay, here's first, second, and third of the best painted, here's first, second, and third of the best sports, and then also maybe with the cash amount, make it equal, like first, second, and third for everybody, and so it kind of de-emphasizes that winning is the only thing. And then also, the people that run it make a big deal out about who got the first for sportsman and paint and winning. I think there's ways to do it. Now, events that I'm running currently, and I'm not saying they're the most popular, they're not, but right now I don't have an award. I do them as events, I don't do them as tournaments. I have an award that goes for best painted, best sports, and best theme. Now, theme is hard to do in tournaments. I'm not saying that they do that. And then I also have best overall. So the battle points are in there, but I don't have any award that's just for battle points. So people kind of quickly learn when they come to my events, oh, it's not about just winning the game, because you're really not getting rewarded for that. You can, in a certain way you are, but it's not the emphasis. But I think, as a group of people, I think we have to judge, do we want to hold ourselves to better standards and include sportsmanship, or do we want to just say, hey, let's do it like it is and winner takes all? Now, if you're going to go that route, you can't poo-poo people that did what happened at LVO, because technically he's not in the wrong. And some people are, but he was slow playing. But, that's also on the refs for not stepping in and doing something, or the other person for not saying something about it. And I've played my share of tournaments, and I was certainly at one time a more competitive player. And there are things that you can do or bring in the judge for that. And the people that were filming that also filming it should have stepped in and say, hey, you got to speed it up here, Val. You're slow playing. So part of that's on them too. That's a tough thing
to judge, yeah.
It is, but I mean, if you're the TO, sometimes you got to be the bad guy and you got to do something, because there are people that do take advantage of that. Some people that don't. People that just play slow. But it's hard. I think. And ways to get around, people will say, oh, well, if you do sports, people will pick people they don't like and give them bad sports scores, so it hurts their overall score. And I think you're right, but for the most part, I think most people, it may happen here and there, but for the most part, I think that really wouldn't affect as much. I mean, because I think here's the thing, like if you make sports score a big thing, there are a certain amount of people that just want to win and that's all they want to do, that'll be like, well, fine, fuck it, I'm not coming anymore. Well, you know what? That just made your event better, because you're not going to have these dickheads out there that are playing to win at all costs. I'm sorry, I mean, that's the way I look at it. But you will, as you get more popular and you get more well-known, to say, hey, they don't just emphasize winning, then these people, like these hobbyists and these painters and these good sports guys, well, hey, I want to go to this event. This sounds fun, because I'm not going to play these jerk-ass players. I'm not saying all tournaments are that way. Don't get me, God, I don't want to get hated.
This is Shawn. This is not me.
Oh, yeah, of course. Nice to.
I have things to say, too.
But I think that you have to decide on how you want to play. And I think also as players, and we got to take a perspective, and we're all very passionate about what we do, but we are playing with little plastic figures and pushing them across the table. It's, you can't, yes, you want to test how good of a player you are, but I think there's more to it than that. I think another thing you can do for sportsmanship that I actually kind of like, that I've heard, is instead of just giving everybody a sports score every game, you can do this. You can do, okay, here's you had, let's say it's a 5-game tournament. You get to, at the end of your tournament, you turn in, you say, okay, pick the 3 best players you played and rank them 1, 2, and 3. Then what happens is, and I kind of incorporate this with my sportswear, but I think this is a way to do it so you're not getting hurt for people that don't like you, because there's no way it's going to hurt you. But they pick the 3 players, and the number 1 spot, let's say that gets 5 points. Let's say that you get 2 points for number 2 spot and 1 point for number 3 spot. Or let's just say 3 points for number 1, 2, and 1. It just makes it easy. And then you add those up. What's going to happen is you're still going to be able to pick a best sportsman, because there's some people that aren't going to get any votes, or sometimes, like, maybe someone liked a game that I had but another person didn't, so I might get voted for one and another person wouldn't vote for me, and so every vote it helps the people it rewards people for being good sports, but it doesn't really hurt the people even really for being dicks. But I mean, it doesn't, you're not going to get hurt because they can't go, I'm going to give this guy a 1 score because I had a bad game with him or I hate him. No, it doesn't hurt you at all. All it does is that you're not getting extra points for sportsmanship. So it behooves you to behave well. And I think that's a way to do it where it's not really hurting other people. It's not hurting your score too. That's my opinion. I do think that sportsmen and things like painting aspects, I would love to see it more important in the tournament scene and in the hobby. I really think it would bring more people out to play the games, and that's what you want. You want to fill the spots. And some of these gaming clubs like Frontline was claiming, well, only 10% of the people that play are really the win at all costs or the more aggressive players, and 90% of us are just there to have a good time. Well, if that's true, then you shouldn't mind introducing sportsmanship and paint. You shouldn't, because if you're there just for the hobby, then you should be just like the other people that want to maybe join in. And I think you could make the tournament and the events bigger and better by getting other aspects of the hobby people there. That's my opinion. I don't know what you have to say, Kenny, and I'm sure you have a lot because I've been blabbing. But
well, a couple of things. I mean, you covered some of it. So this has come up recently. We have been working on an AOS pack, tournament pack, which is now done, and I can throw a link in the show notes. And I was in charge of the sportsmanship part of it. And basically what we did is we tried to take somebody, and this can apply not just we wrote this for AOS for the North American community because it's different from the UK. We're very large, we're regionalized, which is going to come into this discussion here. And you can apply this to 40K, Heresy, whatever it is you want. But we have this thing done, and a few things came up. So one of them is I think that you need to decide what kind of event you want to run, and then make that very clear up front. So and a big way of doing that is by presenting the awards and the scoring structure itself. So if for example, here locally we're doing a narrative one, we're not going to have a best battle points, and then the awards, the awards are based around painting and hobby and sport, then it tells you right away that's the kind of thing. And then it kind of warns your players right ahead that they're going to go into this, and a lot of times they'll pick something that they want. Sometimes they may go and go, whoops, that's not the event I want to go. I'm not going to go back. But if they want to have one of those more super competitive things that don't have soft scores, which we'll talk about in a second here, then that's an option they can have as well. But you should know going into an event what you're going to be getting as far as a scoring thing. And now larger things like Adepticon, I find those are pretty nice because if I do end up playing one of those hardcore players who either really wants to win, well, I mean, they'll probably just be a better player than I am, but if I do have a really bad matchup, what's nice about a larger tournament like that with over 100 people is you can usually split right away. They go up front, I go back down with my people, and then you play the rest of the games kind of, where we're on the same level. But yeah, so I think that's important too, announcing what kind of event you're going to have by making it very clear, and this is something we talk about in the Sportsman Packet. What are your values for this event, and that is represented very well in your awards that you're going to have. The other thing too, so this may not make sense for people outside of the States. So one of the reasons GW asked us to do this for Age of Sigmar in North America, and they kind of look at the three big events, and West Coast, Midwest, and then East Coast. You get LVO, Adepticon, and Nova. We're regionalized, right? And people know their own scenes. And one of the things the Midwest has that not everyone else has in the country, and some people hate it, but are an emphasis on soft scores. Not every tournament, and so by that I mean painting, sportsmen, things that are not just straight up battle points. Now I've seen situations with sports, some of the problems that come up, you can have, all right, well, how are we going to do this? And sometimes you're is this person, if I'm going to score 1 to 5 or 1, 3, 5, whatever each game at the end when you turn in your sheet, you have a lot of people. You have problems where you have everybody at the event, or all but 2 people have straight 5s the entire way through, or whatever your highest score is. So that kind of creates some issues. So that's why I like the idea of a system that goes on top of that. If you are going to use that, something where you do like Bolt Guns Battles did the gold, silver, and bronze, but where you have to rank people. You may like them all, but you have to assign a 1, 2, and 3 to them at some point because you kind of have to break that up because you may like everybody. And we joke about at the end of some of the big events I go to where they're trying to tally up the best scores, and I joke about somebody getting the checkbook out. All right, let's go walk around and make sure I get my best sports score. Go walk around, and people don't actually do that, but it's just It's just a joke.
Or do they?
But yeah, you can see the kind of schmoozing. And have you been at an event where you've seen where somebody is they're trying to get they're trying to secure their spot, whether it's not necessarily not for best sports, but for overall whatever, where the sportsmanship, the score is tied into that,
right?
And so there are issues with it. So like we wrote in the packet, just different ways of doing this and deciding what works best for you. Now, one of the things that came up with sports, I think, as far as like quantifying it, is there are questions that aren't necessarily about the other person or the experience you had. They're kind of there's some questions you can say that take away from that, except for the one at the end of like, who was your favorite opponent? But there's like, would you play this army voluntarily? Again, would you do they represent the theme of the event? And did they show up with their books and their cards and their rules and everything on time? I mean, so there are things that you can look at for sportsmanship, but I would say like you definitely, so first decide, do you want sportsmanship to be an aspect that is emphasized in your event? Hopefully, yes. If not, that's fine too. That's fine. That's your own thing. And then how are you going to quantify that, and how are you going to let people know ahead of time? Because one thing that I hear a lot that I would like your opinion on is people keep telling me I don't want to go to Adepticon and play 40K. Even with 8th, less worried about it, but I still, I'm not going to do it this year. But I'm always like, I don't want to play 40K at Adepticon. Like, I don't think I have any fun. They said, well, we have this thing called the Friendly, and Heresy had the Friendly as well.
Problems
right?
too.
But then I hear, most of the feedback I hear is that it's not. Players that come out and say it's not friendly. So, when you're planning for events and the idea of sportsmanship, I think it, as a concept is gaining a lot of attention. And like, so for example, like stuff on Twitch, right? Like you see, like they talk about good sportsmanship when somebody forgets a turn or they forget a phase or something like that. And I think that is important. I mean, I've always been kind of the opinion of like, if you're in the competitive thing and if I'm playing someone, because usually if somebody's playing me, that means they did really bad. So they're down at the end if it's one of those pairings like that.
Unless it's round 1 and it's Rainbow.
Yeah, and they're kind of down like all right, well, if you're kicking someone's ass and they really have they're just not getting a chance to fight, whatever. I think it's kind of good sportsmanship. Just personally, I've had it done to me. I've recognized it, and I've done it to other people too. Where if it's not going to adjust your score, and you're not going to lose your position of power and ranking, whatever, to kind of throw somebody a bone and give them a unit to fight, or whatever it is. But that's kind of during a game. So I mean, you have to kind of think ahead of time about your event, about what you want sportsmanship to mean to you, and make sure that that's communicated to your players and they understand that coming in. But also, I think it's also the responsibility of a player who's going to be traveling to an event to do. It sounds like a lot when I say do some research, but I mean, just check, see what people are saying about it. I'd first just look at the event's Facebook page or website or whatever and just see what they say, and then look at the pack, the one that tells you the rules, the rubrics for the scoring and everything like that. And if it jumps out at you as like, there's no sports score, or this is how we're going to judge things. I mean, if it seems like it's something you're not going to be into, then that's fine. Then you can at that point ask and inquire.
Yeah, you can always message and say, "Hey, is sports in it, or is paint in it?" That sort of thing.
Yeah, and just ask people what they feel the events are. I mean, people are really trying. There's more events popping up, and people want to promote their events as well. So you can go and where the TO or the event organizer, if it's a larger event or whatever it is, if they're talking about it, if they're doing an interview on a show, on a video, or if they're writing an article or someone's covering it. I mean, there's lots of ways you can go and find out what's going on with these events and where the event has been in the past. If it's evolving, if they tried an experiment with rules and a rubric or something that didn't work and they skip back, then you can find that too. But sportsmanship, I think, is so crucial to the game. But earlier, I'm with you on like I would not want to really go to events that, or I would not want to participate in events, even if they're at a larger con, that do not hold a high value on sportsmanship. I'm not saying I need an award to do that, but if the scoring and the expectation seems to be about battle points and not about sportsmen and painting, stuff like that, or what we call soft scores, then that's not one that I'm really as interested to go to. But I think it's interesting that so Adepticon, again, I haven't played at any of the 40K stuff at Adepticon, but that there even exists something called the Friendly, and then that happened for Heresy as well, and then whether that is or not, depending on who you talk to, I mean, that kind of says something to me. Like, why did they feel the need to create something called the friendly? Were they trying to grab other people that were coming in but didn't want to be super competitive? And this is no a criticism. I think it's actually very interesting, and I'm kind of wondering what the mindset is about having something. So maybe you can talk about that because you've been involved in that. I know the one they had at Heresy, they had a friendly, and it's a smaller player pool, so maybe if there was an issue, it was a little bit less of one, but. I guess it's kind of hard. I mean, I don't know how you would prevent. People can send their list in ahead of time, but even then, they may play it a certain way, or if someone's idea of what is friendly or not, that gets kind of blurry too. So, I mean, that's kind of tough. I think you have to kind of open that. You have to go into one of those with an open mind.
Yeah, and I want to point out, because I think I might have come out when I first started.
It's about time you came out. Thank you very much.
A long speech earlier that was saying that this is the only way to do things. I'm not saying that. If you, I guess, getting back to what happened at LVO, my point would be that if you want to have an event that means that you're a gentleman player and a good sportsman, you need to be explicit in detailing that. And so if you're going to play, I'm only emphasizing winning. That's what most of my awards are going to be from this tournament. Then you can't fault the guy that did what he did at LVO. You can't come down on him. But if you're going to set and change things moving forward, then I think that's fair. But you have to be very explicit in how you're going to do it. Now, me personally, I've played a ton of tournaments. I had my kind of competitive spurt. I don't mind playing competitive games, but I'm kind of past the point where I want to field things that maybe aren't super competitive, and I want to play a game and enjoy the narrative and immerse myself and have a fun beer and pretzel type game. And so I'm kind of past that. I think if you're going to do events like the narrative, now I've played in both the team event, the 4-man team event at Adepticon numerous years, and also at the Friendly a couple years. And the guys who run the Friendly at Adepticon are funny, hilarious, and there's some really good times had, and a lot of times inebriated.
The hell you say?
Anyway, especially being team captain, you end up consuming, imbibing some things. But what I would suggest, this is just a suggestion, and I think would be better. The problem with the Friendly at Adepticon, they've tried submitting the list first, and even that doesn't always tend to work. I've still run into some people that I think know they're not really good players to win best at a championship, so they come into the Friendly I'm going to wreck face because everybody else has got a crappier list. I'm not saying everybody does this, they don't, but there are some. I think what would be cool to emphasize in Friendly tournaments is just call it an event. Don't call it a tournament. But the prize should not go to the best overall player. And unfortunately, with Friendly at Adepticon, the best team, the best battle points still wins. And I want to see the best sportsman win or the best painting get something. And who gives a crap about the battle? Honestly, you could mention it or maybe do something else, but I'd like to see the big prize be something that's not about winning in games. Same thing with the Horus one. I know there were some salty people. I did play the Friendly Horus one too. 30K.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And people were a little salty. I don't think that was a friendly list. And it's true. I did play a game where I ran into 9 Phosphex artillery pieces.
Well, you probably deserved it.
And when I got it, I was like, wow. Was that friendly? But we played the game. It's funny, the guy that was running it, which is awesome, he's awesome, he would, if he'd see something, he'd hand somebody a card and go, okay, next time you use a Phosphex, this is what it is. And it was the Shatner shells, so they were strength 1 with flash or something like that. They caused blind or something. But it was just fun that he tried to help with that, which was awesome.
See that? So that's interesting. So I guess before we get too far, I think it's... I personally am not interested in events that are solely based around battle points, but they're legitimate, and if you want to have them, that's fine. So
I'm not saying it's wrong.
We're not poo-pooing on people that are having that. We're not saying every event has to be all about only sportsmanship.
What kind of is?
Well, no, I mean, I'm just kidding. I don't mind, because I'm gonna lose anyway. I figure if it's a large enough player base, then it works itself out after round 1, at the most after round 2, and that's fine. I guess there are different ideas too of what is sporting, what's sportsmanship, and
True.
we're not saying. Because I've seen there go to the extreme where you're like, okay, people show up and they're being really nice, and you're like, well, are they just offering me a drink, or because they want me to give them best sport? So I mean, like it's just like when
I guess I haven't had that,
anything that has score. I've run into this, and I've run into the suspicion too. So if you base something around, I mean, these are both extremes. I'm not saying they're going to happen, but if you base this only around this, then you will have people that start questioning why are they being so nice, or why are they going super out of their way, and that can sour the pot a little bit too. But is it really
going to make it bad? I mean, I would rather play against someone that's like exceptionally nice and maybe fake versus someone that's an a-hole.
Well, and ideally, what I would like to see is sportsmanship. I think. So I guess part of it is like we're training. Like I want to train a community around me to start to play a certain way where you don't have to put such a spotlight on sportsmanship because it's already understood and ingrained in the culture.
I mean, that would be great, but it's not
that's already in there. Right now. So me personally, what I would love to see happen is I'd love to see that just kind of happen. And there are, there's different examples of that. Like, I mean, if somebody makes a mistake, forgets to move something or skips a phase and things like that, I mean, those are some specific ones I can think of where I would just be, when I'm going to play, like, okay, fine, you can do that. Now I understand why some people won't do that, but I think that's kind of like, so we're talking about what we think when it all costs everything. We're talking about one example that happened, but
extremes,
maybe we should talk a little more about, because there's an area in between of like, was it just, there are some people who have who are very nice people who have a game face, and that's happened with in fact there's been some UK people over the past 4 or 5 years that have come over to Adepticon events and been surprised at having low sport. If you're listening, you probably know some of these people are, but I'm not going to mention it, but who have been surprised by their sportsmanship scores because there was either their list that they brought was very heavy and hard, and the Midwest of the United States didn't like, the list was too hard, so they gave this one person's lower sportsmanship scores, or people that came over and have a game face that are on. They're totally different when the games are different, but you start to worry about like, well, my opponent, is he having a bad time? Is he or what's going on? Is he mad about something? And sometimes people just go into that game face,
right.
And so I mean, there's so many there's so many aspects of this, right? And overall, the ultimate goal is to have a positive gaming experience, right? You want to have a good time. You want, people are paying, sometimes they're traveling, whatever. This might be their only escape of the year to get out and do this, and so you want people to have a good time. And you just have to kind of think about sportsmanship. I don't think it's there's like a set the dial that you could put on it, because you have to think about what's going on in your local culture. I mean, that's why we had to do with Age of Sigmar, and I think they're doing the 40K as well, is have it put out these modular packs to people that want to run tournaments or events, and kind of look at what it is that you have in your area, what your culture is, and make sure that you have a packet that makes sense around that, an event that makes sense around that. But if you're trying to emphasize sportsmanship, then I agree. First, you got to decide what that is, and then if that is a core value of the event you're going to run or one you want to go to, then you need to just be, like you said, explicit about that and make sure that that's clear. And any TO, I mean, they'll talk to you, and because people want you to come to their events, right? They want you to have a good time, and once you're there, I mean, you want to be, so like, it sounds like another thing too is like when you told me about this article, it kind of, the first thing that popped into my head is like, oh, that kind of sucks, because it seems like they were having this cool high stakes battle, and then the immersion got ruined because of this thing, right? And so you want to have, I guess, less distractions, right? You don't want to have the immersion now taken away from you, because you got cool models on the table and a good looking battlefield, and you're really into it. And when that has to get interrupted by rules calls and judges, now it may be like, okay, does this work that way? Now let's pull the scroll up, whatever. And now, fortunately, it's a lot easier because you have war scrolls and data scrolls. You can just look at that. So I don't mean like that, but I mean, having to stop your game for several minutes because you have to have someone come over, that really ruins the immersion, and that's not enjoyable for anybody, I think, as well. So. I mean, sportsmanship is kind of a nebulous concept, so that's why I'm glad we actually waited a week to talk about it, so we had more time. And and we both have different. Shawn and I agree on most of this, but we have some different opinions as well, or I guess preferences, really. I guess
Yeah,
and that's okay.
I'm not saying any one thing is right, but I think another thing that I would like to see, even heavy tournaments, is remember that even though we're paying to go to these things most of the time, sometimes they're not, it's not all about you. It's a social obligation. It's a contract. Every game you enter, it's not just you playing, it's an opponent, and you want to make sure that everybody has a good time with this. You both want to have a good time. You want to go there and have fun. It might be your escape, but sitting across the table from you don't know what's going on in that guy's life or a woman's life, and so you want to make sure that their game is good too. And I'm not saying there's any one right way to do things. I mean, one thing that I will say at Adepticon is, even at Adepticon, even like bigger when I was playing more tournament things, I always was very open about stuff, and if someone's like, hey, I forgot this, do you mind if I do it? I'm like, hey, go for it, man. The only time I had a problem with it is if it wasn't reciprocated. Like, you do it, and someone, I'm like, hey, I forgot this. Too bad, it's too late. I'm like, okay, well, that's how we're going to play, I guess. But I always do the benefit of the doubt. I always try to, like, let people, I don't care. I want to just have fun. I want them to have fun. And the other thing, too, I remember one time I was playing this game. It was actually 6th edition. And we were playing a competitive list. We were doing pretty well. And I was playing Eldar, and my partner was playing Tau. And that was when they were battle bros at the time. These guys rolled up with 2 White Scar lists that were really competitive too. And they had all these bikes. And they had turn 1, and we seized on them. And their saves just didn't. They had a guy that had the Gorgon chain and all stuff, and their saves just were not going for him. And we just punked the crap out of them first turn, and it wasn't expected. They weren't expecting it. And during the thing, and as soon as we finished, I could tell that they were a little upset, and not mad at us, but just upset that that's how it went. They were
bummed, yeah.
Yeah, they were bummed. I mean, they worked hard for that. It just like we had. And I said, hey, what do you guys like to drink? I'm going to go get you guys a drink. I got him a drink. We talked and chatted, and after that, and we kind of stopped in and say, hey, during the rest of the weekend, we kind of saw each other, like, hey, how's it going? So we ended it on friendly terms. It wasn't a bad thing. And I mean, same thing if the reverse would have happened and we would have gotten our butts kicked. I would have been, it's like, I try to do stuff like that to try to make it so that they have a good time too, and talking about stuff. So I'm not saying it, my way is right, and that's the only way to do it. I'm not saying that at all. I mean, Kenny's inferring that, but I'm just kidding.
I can see people are listening, and maybe or maybe they're doing something. And
they probably already written.
They're catching every other word.
They've already written hateful comments. By the time they get to this part, hey. But no, I mean, I think it's something that we need to address, because I do think it depends on what kind of thing you want to do for this hobby, but I think we have to evaluate, are we just going to play tournaments that are just about winning the game? And if so, then business as usual. But if we're not, or even if we're doing a big event and we're going to run something that's different than just competitive play, how could we tweak it to make things like the friendly events be really friendly? And I think sometimes by emphasizing, people go to events, they're going to do like awards and stuff like that, is by acknowledging like things like Sportsman and Paint instead of who wins the game will help drive the right people to play in those events. I think. I mean, you could disagree with me.
Yeah.
But I think that would help. So I think we need to kind of take a look at, if we're going to run friendlier events, do we want to just still look at who's the winner? I think ultimately maybe not, because I don't think that's why we're playing. Like when I play the friendly events, even in Adepticon, I do not go in thinking, I want to win this. I'm like, the last time I played Sisters of Battle. This was back in 7th, and they were not. This was before they had their book right before the end. They were not good, trust me. But I had fun playing, and I guess I will tell a little story. My last opponent and I started a bottle of the Knott's whiskey, and we finished it by the end of the game. And so both of us were in an altered state at that point, but we had fun. And I honestly don't even remember. I'm being truthful. I do not actually know who won that game. I don't think either one of us cared at the end of that. But we had fun. And I was actually there was different teams and different colors, and I was actually the green team captain. And we just had fun. So I think it just depends on what you want to get out of it.
So training the community, right? So if ideally, like we talked about that in this modular packet that we did for North America for GW, the question comes up though, like, we want to train our community to, to be good sports, right? So when they show up, so ideally then, say 2 years down the road, we have a game, we have an event, and everyone shows up, and they're all sporty, and they all get perfect sports scores. Probably a large result of that would be then we would have less rules issues, and the games would be very enjoyable all around. I guess what I'm saying is we're not trying to replace battle points with sportsmanship only. But,
no, I'm not saying that.
But it's at some point then ideally as you do emphasize that once you get sportsmanship that's
sounded bad.
I like that as an outtake. Maybe
shit up
as you get your shit up right as you get your sportsmanship up, and that's a highlighted value. Then then it's not such a bad. It's not such a bad experience that when people are winning with battle points and everything. So I'm not saying. You know what I'm saying? I'm having trouble articulating, right?
I know what you're saying.
If you're removing, if this is like the bad sportsmanship is the ill, right? And then medicine is then, and the treatment is to give it, is to emphasize and try and grow sportsmanship as a value. Then eventually you get to that point and you get better. Then do you work battle points back in? I mean, they're always still kind of there.
Well, I think the battle points are there, and maybe you could de-emphasize things, but I still think it's going to drive if you run events where you still do sportsmanship and paint, because it does drive. There are reasons why people there. I know particularly you're so worried about me knocking stuff, and then you go and do this.
Well, dude, you're a big lumber.
There are people I know in particular that come to events because they're really proud of their paint. They want to show off their paint. They know they're not going to win games, but they're hoping to win paint, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I agree,
and I would like to. I'd like to kind of nurture more people like that to come to these events, because it's going to in the end make these events more successful. Even if you're playing for battle points, it gets more people playing. You get a bigger turnout.
Well, I agree with that too. Then, so you get the don't be a dick. The philosophy, don't be a dick. But yeah, you want people to show up and really feel comfortable about coming to events and have a good time. And I guess I can think of it more as like there are less roadblocks to that too. You can kind of show up and just feel really confident that you are going to have a good time no matter how your games go,
right? Because
there's a high level quality of paint and sportsmanship and just a general good time, and you have less of those things that bring stress on there. Let me just ask you real quick, because we don't need to do a whole episode on this, but I want to ask you, because we haven't actually talked about this, so we're going to have a lot, live for us, recorded for you, but general gaming etiquette. What are some of your things? I can give you some examples if you want me to start off, but what are some things that you think are important? And maybe so this is in the modular too. Is like, if you feel you need to mention these things, go ahead. If you feel it's insulting humans in your audience, then don't put them in. If they're common sense. But I mean, there are, so like for example. I don't want to say this one first, but I'm going to. Hygiene. Hygiene is important, right? That's, you want to make sure that you
bathe yourself,
that you don't you're not repulsive to your opponent and the people around you. Be respectful as a human being, but also game events involve a lot of drinking, and people go out and they can get shit faced and everything. And I think it's general courtesy to at least be somewhat sober, and not completely inebriated. Like, don't be so like shit faced or out of it that because your opponent may be in the same boat. Maybe they're like that, but maybe they don't. Maybe they might get a little bit annoyed that you're so out of it that you can't even participate in the game. Like, you're not paying attention to them in the game. I think it's good etiquette also to set things, even if they're like simple things that you can go through, but like, hey, do you want to call this a cock die or not? Is it agree upon what type of terrain this is? Hey, if my dice are mixed, that probably I suggest don't do that. But somebody said to me there at our game on Friday, and I laughed because I'm so used to saying it by rote every time. Like, every symbol is a 6 on all my dice. And telling people if you have dice that have symbols, probably shouldn't mix them in a game, but whatever, if you do, let them know. Making sure if somebody's missing something huge, I tend to kind of point out to them like, hey, you got the save over here. Now, I understand if you're competing and you need people to screw up. I mean, I guess ideally you would not need them to screw up, right? Yeah, ethically. I mean, so like, that's kind of where it comes into sportsmanship. But yeah, go ahead. Talk about.
I guess to me,
expand on that.
I guess one thing I'll expand on first, it is unfortunately in our area, isn't. There are other areas that are better about it, and we are not. So we have to, like, a lot of our events. It doesn't require you have painting. You get a better paint score if you do. And I would love to see, as a social obligation, I think you have an obligation that your army you're playing looks nice, so that someone that's playing against you is immersing, has a full immersion. And so it does annoy me. I personally don't bring things that aren't painted to events, but I know people that do, and that's fine. I mean, you can do it, but I think depending on the area, there's some areas you go and you don't bring unpainted stuff. Like it's just a no-no.
Let me just throw in real quick. Not everyone can, like if you're not really good at painting, right? I understand, like
that's not the same thing.
So I mean, not saying you have to get your army commission painting, but people will acknowledge if you try.
Right.
I think it's what they want, because people are paying, and especially if it's a big event, they're coming, and so it's part of the courtesy. I agree with you that it looks that your army looks good,
and
that you at least put the.
I mean, like a 3-color minimum. I'm not taking a jackass 3-color minimum, because there was somebody at an event that purposely didn't have. He had 2 colors, and he went and bought a color paint into a cross of another color on everything. That's not 3-color minimum. But I'm fine with someone that isn't necessarily the best painter. I'm certainly not the best either. I still appreciate that they painted things.
He's a better painter than I am.
This is what I get to have to deal with, people. Anyway, so as far as that, I'm just putting that out there. I know it's a little bit of a side note, but I think painting is important to my immersion of the game, and I know there are other paint snobbies like me, and painting is important to me. I like it. It's an important part of my aspect of the hobby.
It sounds like what you're saying is the hobby is important as well, too.
Well, yeah.
And try. I mean, so try to win. Like I always feel bad when I try and when I do really bad when the dice rolls are like just absolutely horrible. Because it's always funny when someone discovers how my dice rolls work and they haven't played me before, and they kind of notice. They're like, "Oh, don't have that attitude." And then by turn 2, they're like, "Holy shit, I've never seen." Unless his hair saves.
What I have to say about this is he says this, and me playing him in Age of Sigmar against his freaking Fire Slayers, that son of a bitch can roll 4 and 5 ups to beat the band. So I don't want to hear about his dice. I've just got to say, I'm like, oh my god, you made that again? Like I mean,
well, but a legitimate thing I have with I feel bad when I'm at games, and I'm sure this has happened to you with dice when we played like the Custodes at the Wargamer store that one time and the rolls were like absolutely terrible. Like I feel bad. When I feel like I haven't given my opponent a good game, and so I will sometimes apologize and I'll feel bad about it. Like I think you should try. Sometimes there's things you can't.
Dice you can't change.
Yeah, I mean there's something you can't do about it, right? So like I find myself saying like I'm sorry I couldn't give you a better game, and but that happens. But like to me,
you should apologize.
That's kind of but I mean it's kind of where my mind is sportsmanship and general etiquette and general is like you want to try, because I know that I've seen they'll be like I think it's insulting if you don't try your very best to win, and that's totally valid, and I guess it's just kind of like I think you should be able to kind of gauge from your social experience at what the event is and everything. It kind of falls to this bigger umbrella, but you talk to your opponent and make sure that you agree on things ahead of time so you don't have problems.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Just be considerate. I think
be considerate.
And I mean, I always try to when I'm playing in an event, a tournament. I'll be okay. Before the game starts, what do you want to count this terrain as? Now, terrain's not as big a deal now because there used to be things like 4 up, 5 up cover. Now it's just +1 to cover. But I will say before we start, okay, is this going to be cover? Is this going to be cover? How you want to move through this, that sort of thing. And I think it's good to establish that beforehand, get in the habit of it, because then there's no problems when you get to that. Like, oh no, I never agreed to that, and then you got a problem. Like I think just establishing those before starting the game is an easy way, in my opinion, to do things. And like you said, telling the people, okay, my dice have this symbol on it, it's on the 6s, then they know. But I do think that even when you're paying for a tournament, it's still a social obligation. You still need to try to make sure your opponent has a good game too.
So I'm kind of surprised here. I'm looking at my phone real quick, and we're talking about what we mentioned earlier in the episode about the Black Library, the giveaway, and tell us what you like. And somebody wrote a reply about they want to read about Slaanesh's capture, and the official Game of Thrones Twitter account liked it. Just kind of like odd. I mean, that's cool.
Wow.
I was a little surprised. I'm like, wow, it's not like a fan club. It's like they're actual, like, wow. All right.
That's cool. Anyway, I'm not saying you have to run an event a certain way. I do think, though, that this whole thing at LVO brings up a good point.
It's good because
we have to decide, how do we want our games to be? And honestly, you really, really, I would stress, and you can disagree with me, I don't think you can poo-poo anybody, even the people that are kind of coming down on the one person for kind of not letting the other guy do the move. Because actually, if you're playing by the rules, he's in the right to do so. And so I think we need to establish how do we want to move forward? How do our events want to handle sportsmen? And if we are going to incorporate sportsmen, you have to define it, because one person's perception of it is different than another person's.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer that it should be an important aspect that we aspire to. And so this is obviously, I think, going to make ripples because it was a major tournament. Somebody wrote an article about it, and then it generated $15,000 towards, right. And I wasn't at LVO, and I didn't see this game. I haven't even finished watching the LVO Wargamer Twitch, and apparently this was on their other one. Yeah, so I'm not really. I guess I don't have like a vested interest so much into this one. It's just it's a topic that's come up. This particular event. Not even event, because I mean this happenings, this occurrence at the event itself has kind of spawned this discussion. So I'm not really trying to. We actually kind of wanted to talk about it before, but this actually it came up as a good opportunity for us to talk. It's an important discussion, and I'm not making I'm not making a judgment call on this or the event or what happened. I wasn't at the game, and I wasn't. A judge, or
trying to throw me under the bus here.
Well, I don't think I can pick you up and throw you. But I mean, I guess to me, it brings up the topic. So I'm not trying to say I'm not coming down on a side.
I'm not coming down on a side either. By the way, I don't want that painted. Yeah. That picture.
Well, but I think we should clarify, because I mean, there are some points if somebody is listening kind of in and out, and maybe like they hear something and come back and like, wait, what did Shawn just say? Or what did it would be because I'm awesome. Of course, I would never say anything bad about anyone.
Well, you keep throwing me under the bus too. You keep like, well, my
right.
Of course, but no, right. But I think it's important. I mean, it's not an easy answer.
But I guess something else that's kind of cool. This article that came up today, and Shawn, I believe, as far as I know, shares the same values as Robert and I. But ever since Combat Face started, we have been huge proponents of charity, and I think it's awesome. And when I go to other countries and they say, what's gaming like in the US, the first thing that comes up, one of the first things that comes up is that our Warhammer events, whether they're fantasy or 40K or whatever, are usually always tied to a charity. Mm-hmm. It's sort of expected, especially in the Midwest, and there's raffles or whatever. But
Nova does something.
And it's awesome that is a huge element of this, right? So I'm looking at this thing and thinking wow, as I'm reading this Warhammer community article, it's $15,000 that was generated through Warhammer to go to a really worthy cause, and I think that's awesome. And I want to make sure that is mentioned as well, because that's kind of, sportsmanship was a conversation we've been talking about and needed to have. But we try to do, obviously, if you're listening to the show, even if you're a recent listener, somebody who's joined us recently, maybe you don't know our history with this, but Extra Life or donating things to charity, we look at with Horus Heresy and the Decade of Heresy. One of the phenomenons that comes up over a Decade of Heresy is the huge amounts of money that's been raised through charities and worthy causes, based on love of heresy as a property. And 40K does it too. There's raffle armies. There's events that do that. There are different charities at events, and then there's different ones based on something locally that you might find on your forum and everything. So that's a huge, amazing part of the hobby that seems to just be growing and getting better and better. And I love it that's happening. So that's awesome. So
that is true.
That's another takeaway from this that I see. But as far as sportsmanship, I think it's going to be an ongoing discussion. Now, I feel like there are people that will have responses to this. So even though the Facebook page is kind of where we drop down posts, and especially for giveaways, that's where you're gonna go to reply to win your Black Library signed anthology and other prize coming in February, the rest of the month. But maybe do you think then for the post for this episode is a good place for people to come and maybe give us their comments? Because I would like to hear the feedback and what you think.
If you, I think,
or if you want to throw a brick through the window, I can give you the address.
I guess, or hit us up on Twitter too is fine. I think.
Oh,
Don't forget to follow at Wargamer Shawn. We'll put it in the show notes below. But you were busy one day, and I decided to be an asshole and be like, "Hey, everybody, follow you." And it didn't get as many as I thought, but I was kind of hoping to have you like.
I got 14 out of it.
That was kind of I was
better
thinking
than what I had.
I was kind of thinking you'd have like 200 or 300 by the end of the day. So. And you'd be like overwhelmed or like, oh my god, what's going on?
I'd shit myself.
But like, unlike, I remember like when Duncan didn't know he could turn it off. Like you at least know that you can turn Twitter off. But the notifications.
If Duncan followed me, I would probably shit my pants.
Well, don't do it. I'm sitting next to you, so don't.
Well, I will. I'll do it.
No, please. No.
Smell this. No.
Okay, so. Wrapping up around that, do we have anything else? Because I know other shows have already talked about this or are going to be talking about this and kind of leading it into a discussion of sportsmanship. So it is very important, and I guess I want to I'll drop a link in the show notes below as well. But do check out, even if you don't do AOS, check out the North American pack that was put together by several of us all around the country, including Reese and Frankie. And folks from Nova and folks from Adepticon, and then a bunch of other places as well. It's a modular pack that basically says, I want to play, even though it's for Age of Sigmar, and the examples in there are based from tons of events, from small local events up to LVO, Adepticon, and Nova, that size. And there are little tools in here you can use to get yourself started, and some checklists and questions you can ask about your local community, what your intent is, and it's a great resource. And it's not just for Age of Sigmar, even though it's the AOS community pack. You can use it for 40k, Necromunda, Blood Bowl, whatever it is you want to do. But definitely check it out. It is a good resource, and there's a lot of great ideas in there. It doesn't tell you one way. It gives you, if anything, gives you a whole lot of information, and you can go through and kind of pick and choose. And there's it's set up nice as well as a PDF, but there's also another site you can look at it so you can navigate more easily. So if you only want to look at sportsmanship or painting or whatever, you don't have to read the entire thing. You can just click and go there, and it'll give you what you need. So I do want to throw a plug in for that, because that is a really awesome resource. And another thing another thought closing up too. So I think you and I feel the same about the naming of an event as an event versus a tournament. I think tournament does kind of imply. I don't think tournament's a dirty word, but I think it does imply being more competitive. And this has been a discussion that's been kind of happening. I'm sure it's happening over the place, but we've had locally here with events, and as we've created these events in the weekends and the months ahead, saying, do we want to call them events or a narrative event versus like a narrative tournament or something? And that's also something you might want to consider if you are going to be running one of these or going to one of these, is one way to make it explicit of what your values are, what you're looking for in this game. It's kind of hard to say, because event is an event. Even a tournament is also an event, because you're running something. Just I guess how you name it is somewhat important as well.
Yeah, but it does. It depends on where you're at too. But I think it does mean something. When someone reads event, I think they do kind of realize, oh wait, this isn't your normal tournament. Versus if you say, even if you said a narrative tournament, I think people would still think, oh, it's competitive, but it's narrative. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, in the scoring, yeah. So
yeah,
if you want sportsmanship to be valued and something that people will aspire to, then just promote that and reward that, put that out there.
Yeah,
incentivize it.
If you've got different ideas too on how you think a good way to do sportsman in events, please, down below where in Twitter or Facebook, say it. Share your ideas. I want to hear it. I think Kenny does too. Yeah, well, he's plugging his ears, so he doesn't want to hear.
Yeah, whatever.
No, just kidding.
I mean, it's easy. I hate keyboard commandos, and it's really easy to sit there and criticize something that when you're anonymous behind the computer screen, my name is troll 12345.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And I can blah 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 blah. This person and you were like you said. We started at the beginning of the discussion. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the full picture. Right. You don't know what's going on in someone else's head.
Right.
What kind of day they've had. What their plan is. A strategy at the event. I mean, so. I don't know if it's super when we first talked about this. Is it really fair to jump on somebody? When I'm not there, I wasn't there, so I can't really. And this is not bashing anybody. I'm just saying, from my own personal perspective, I wasn't there. All I know is these articles that people are writing about this. So I'm not trying to make a judgment on this person. And I thought that they were pretty.
Well, I think the Frontline article painted that person in a pretty bad picture, and I think I would have appreciated even someone that wasn't there not painting that person in such a bad light. I think it would have been a little bit. I mean, I think they needed to address it, but I don't think it was handled in the best way. I think it could have been. Now, don't get me wrong. Frontline and Reese and Frankie have done a lot for the community. They have, and it wasn't them that wrote the article, but. I still think, always, because people look to you almost, especially Frontline as idols, you want to be careful, bringing that hammer down because you don't, pointing fingers and trying to place blame.
All right, well, welcome back to Combat Phase, and we're continuing on with more Black Library author interviews because that's what we do. And we have somebody who's not in England.
Yay! I mean, the England's good. England's good, yeah.
Oh, yeah, nothing.
I reached out to you to assume that you were. I just assume everyone's in the UK, so we're like, I'm in the United States. Like, oh, that's awesome.
So where are you at in the world?
Yep, I'm actually a Midwesterner. I'm in the heart of it all in Ohio. So.
Are you a Buckeyes fan?
I work at OSU, so I kind of have to be, unfortunately.
the Ohio State.
The Ohio State University, yes.
Yeah, I mean, in Wisconsin here, we're a little bit of rivalry with the Badgers, so.
Okay.
So. Sorry. Anyway, it's cool.
Nope.
Someone else from the Midwest.
Yeah.
They have the same accent. They'll talk like us. Well, not like you because you're from the East
I don't
Coast.
have an accent.
Oh yeah, sure you don't.
So Evan Dicken, welcome to the show.
Yes, very welcome.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on.
Well, we wanted to because a new author pops up, so I got to catch them all. So I wanted to talk to you, but we thought this would be a good chance for us, in addition to talk to you about the work that you put out recently, AOS work, kind of your first introduction. So about you as a writer, any kind of history, how you got into this, and where your aspirations and where you hope to go. So I guess let's talk about you as a writer first, and then we can get into the AOS story. Just tell us how did you come to write for Black Library?
Oh, well, that was it was sort of out of the blue. I have a website, and it seems like every time I'm about to take it down, something good happens. And so I was just about to take it down again. I've been writing for well over a decade, and I've seen some success, but I was just about to say, what's not worth the expense? And out of the blue, Charlotte Llewellyn Wells, the submissions editor for Black Library, just contacted me. And honestly, I thought it was a scam at first. They wouldn't. How could they possibly be interested in me? I mean, a very well-targeted scam, I should say. But so yeah, she contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in pitching some ideas, and I put a half dozen together, and she liked one of them, and that's where Path to Glory came from.
Awesome. So. Nice. Yeah, what's cool actually about this one, so when you Path to Glory, which you can get it through, I guess, iBooks. I got mine through iBooks, or you can get it the EPUB version when you buy it on Black Library's website directly. At the end of it, I thought this was really neat. So when I finished reading it, I saw at the end when they do the about the author, and they had mentioned some of the other books and stuff that you had as well. So that was kind of a neat, it was a neat bio, a neat opportunity to talk about your other work as well.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, you want me to talk about it?
Oh no, you can if you like.
Yeah. Please do.
Well, I've been writing. I mean, I actually started as a horror writer, so I've kind of bridged genres, and I just sort of slipped into sci-fi, and now I'm firmly rooted in fantasy. So I kind of worry that people heading to my site will get some of my earlier fiction and be like, this isn't what I wanted. So I tried to put sort of the more fantasy at the top of the website. But I've done a lot of work for Heroic Fantasy Quarterly, which has a bit of crossover with a number of Black Library authors, and Beneath Ceaseless Skies, they do some great work. So I've done a couple short stories for them. I've been on a number of the podcasts, like the Escape Pod and Pseudopod and that sort of thing. So I don't know. I've just been sort of bouncing around for the past decade as an author, just whatever struck my fancy.
So did you get into Age of Sigmar? Like how did you come to pick that one?
That's well, I was a firm. I always loved Warhammer Fantasy in my childhood and teenage years, so it was just sort of natural to go into Age of Sigmar. But honestly, I missed the entire transition from Old World to Age of Sigmar because, as far as the novels and stories go, because I had a kid. So that took about 3 years out of my life.
Oh yeah, they do that.
which is the exact amount of time that it took for basically the transition from the Old World to Age of Sigmar to start. So I kind of came into Age of Sigmar with my eyes, completely. I was just completely blind to what was going on. But it's a really neat setting, and I really enjoyed sort of digging in there.
Yeah, Black Library's really helped to develop that too, and I think it's definitely got better as it's gone on. So it's do you play it at all?
I used to, but again, sort of life creeped in, and I haven't really gotten into Age of Sigmar yet. But I did play, Warhammer and Warhammer 40K back in the day, Blood Bowl, Warhammer Quest, pretty much everything, all the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, all that fun stuff.
Oh yeah, good times.
What army did you play in Warhammer?
I did High Elves at first, and then I transitioned to Orcs and Goblins because I like dumb armies, even though I lose all the time.
Who doesn't love Orcs and Goblins? So let's talk about this. So first of all, so the story's called Path to Glory. I feel like I should say this even though I don't think I need to, but this is a story. This is a work of fiction. There's a path. I think the campaign is called Path to Glory. I think it's called Path to Glory. Mm-hmm. So I just don't want people to confuse the two. This is not the campaign book. This is a story, an original story, and actually a cool story. Do you want to? So I was talking to Shawn actually about this too, and kind of how Age of Sigmar has done what the old world could only do. It was kind of limited with the planet. You can go back in time with Time of Legends, but they really kind of had this, and you would have to move the whole story forward, which, as we all know, in the end they did. But 40K is like this vast, infinite. It's a galaxy's huge. You can always add on more planets. But they had built in all these different epochs beforehand, and this one, you have these realms that are almost infinite. They're quite vast, but they also built in previous ages as well. So I think that's part of the appeal even of this story from the beginning, and the story itself is actually really good. So do you want to talk about, setting up the story and tell us where and when the story is?
It's sort of towards the end of the age, the beginning of the age of chaos, essentially. So you've got, it was kind of my farewell to the old world. I sort of jumped at the chance to write about an empire falling and sort of a transition from old to new, and how, sort of the people on the ground would react to that, especially with Sigmar closing all the realm gates. You're going to have some people left behind, as sad as that may be. And so I thought it was very fun to sort of play with different reactions people would have to being essentially abandoned to their fate. So, and that was sort of the germ of Age of Sigmar. And also thought it would be really cool to write a story from the perspective of someone or someone's falling to chaos that wasn't necessarily a direct temptation, because you sort of always get that, I want power, I want prestige, I want all this, but these people have clear motivations, and chaos just sort of dovetails in there and sort of takes it over, because I just find it really insidious, and it's a really fun concept to play with, and so that just sort of jumped out at me. And I thought that it would be, I don't want to give any spoilers away for people who haven't read the story, but I thought it'd be fun to sort of follow someone or a few people down there, that path to glory essentially, and just sort of see where it took them.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. I know Kenny was talking to me about that, and the kind of insidious path, and it's not just an obvious. I don't want to spoil anything by saying.
I know it's kind of hard to talk about.
But just the way that chaos kind of worked in there, it wasn't the typical what you're used to seeing.
Well, I got misled a few times. And this is a good thing. Like, as I was reading the story, I got to a few parts from like, oh, it's going to be this, and I don't. Well, if you think this is a spoiler, I can cut this part out. But Livius, is that Livius?
Livius, yeah.
Livius,
I'm
right?
perfectly fine with spoilers, by the way. It doesn't bother me.
That's fine. Well, so as his first scene happens, I'm reading it and his thoughts and sort of his imaginings, and I'm thinking like, oh, this is a flesh eater core thing. Like, this is really cool, actually. Like, this is insanity, and he's and then of course it doesn't. I'm trying to actually I can see your face now, so I can see if you're like, holy shit, that was totally way off.
You're part of it.
I really enjoyed the flesh eater courts, and especially a lot of them are sort of grafted over the old Atlantic Empire. So there were just so many things I could play with. So and I tried to throw out a lot of threads that hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to write more about those characters. But time will tell.
Did you make up Atlantic, or is that somewhere in the setting?
Oh no, it's sort of seeded through a number of books. As I was doing my research, I kept running across it just in sort of mentions.
Okay.
The Atlantic Empire is this big, and the Gilded Steamgird, and I literally had no idea what that was. So I shot a question over to Nick Kime, and he says it's just sort of a big steampunk wall, and I'm like, I can work with that.
Yeah, it's and I think players that are fans of the old world that got some of the earlier Black Library books. There were some compilations like Laughter of Dark Gods and others that are named. I can't remember what they are off the top of my head. But there are books like that, and I felt like this story worked. It was really cool in AOS as a setting, but it was also kind of an homage to some of the earlier fiction of that. That's not necessarily specific to a named character, but the tone and everything. And that's why I feel like it hit and it resonated so well on so many different levels, and I really, really think that anyone should pick this up and read it, because now it is a bit longer for the same price as you would pay for a short story. This one's a bit longer, so for those,
which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah, those are out there that are like, I want my stories to be this many words, this many links, and you'll be happy with this one. And I know that this will pop up in some kind of compilation at some point, but yeah, I thought this was a really good one, so we just wanted to have you on and let people know about it. Do you have any plans of stuff coming up, or are there things you would like to talk about?
Yeah, with GW or anything else?
Yeah, I'm in the process of working on a novella for them. I'm sort of handcuffed as to what I can say about it, but I'm actually writing it right now. We're sort of just finishing up the first draft, so hopefully that will go well. I mean, everything could fall apart as always, but
is it Age of Sigmar again?
Yes, it's Age of Sigmar. I think it's set sort of. It's not in any particular arc or things like that. It's a standalone novella. So it hopefully is slated to come out this year if everything goes well. Fingers crossed. So.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to see more stuff from you. That'd be good.
Well, I'm honored. Really, this has been sort of a dream come true for me. Honestly, I went from being a fan to being able to actually write in the world that I love. That's what more could you ask for?
Exactly. Any plans to do anything with like 40K or 30K, or I know they're talking about writing stuff for Shadespire and Necromunda too. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
I'd very much love to. I'd love to do anything they throw at me. Honestly, I'm a big fan of the whole milieu. So anything that they, if they're listening now, I'd be happy to write 30K, 40K. Shadespire, Necromunda. Oh gosh, I love Necromunda. But,
isn't it great that it's back? I was, I've been playing GW stuff since 1987, and when Necromunda came out, it was one of my favorite things in college, and it was like awesome. And then it went away, and I was so sad, and I'm just so excited it's back.
So, since this will go up before the submission deadline, which I think is April 10th, or when submissions are due. Do you have any words just for those that are going to be those many aspiring authors that want to throw in a submission for the Black Library open call?
Well, do it. The first story I ever wrote was for Black Library back when Inferno was being published, and I never sent it in, which is probably for the best because I wasn't a very good writer back then, but. I mean, if you've got an idea, I tell all my gaming friends, if you've got an idea rattling around your head, now's the time. Just send it in. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah, exactly. Well, at least they're open to hearing from people, too.
Yeah, and the Inferno picture, when Amazon puts their stuff up in advance, people always find that and then throw it around. So there was that, cover not final, but the description, the product description for Inferno later this year, and we all went bonkers. We knew it was coming, but yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I'm so excited. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for coming on the show. We know we'll have you on again in the future. And in the meantime, where can people go to follow you and your work?
My website is just evandicken.com, and that's the best place to do it. I just sort of ramble on there. You can contact me through the website if you want to yell at me or tell me anything I did is wrong. That's perfectly fine too. But you can find my work there, and that's the best place to find me.
All right, so we'll throw that below in the show notes as always, and check out Path to Glory, the ebook. It's really good. I think you'll definitely enjoy it. It's got a lot of also those things that folks demanded. We got a really good glimpse at City of Secrets of a bit more of the development of the people who are not Stormcast into the cities, and I thought that was seated in there in the Atlantic Empire and in the scene. So I think you will definitely enjoy this as a reader. So go pick it up, and then we'll talk to you next time we have you on.
Hopefully we get to see more from you. I would love to see that. Love to have you on again.
I'd love for you to see more. Thank you so much.
Yeah, when your novella comes out, we'll have you back on the show.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
I'd love to. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Yes, thank you very much. It's an honor. And I mean, I'll forgive you that you're a Buckeye fan.
Well, his state will decide his state will decide the next president. So we got to be nice to Ohio.
OSU signs my paycheck, so I sort of have to be.
That's fine. That's fine. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Goodbye, you sexy motherfucker.